Hello, I am Martin, and this is Short Stories, brought to you by the National Taichung University of Science and Technology Language Center. You may know today's short story. It's a romantic tragedy written by William Shakespeare in the 1590s. Along with Hamlet, it's considered to be Shakespeare's most popular play. It has also been turned into numerous movies and continues to inspire writers working in the romance genre. I'm talking about Romeo and Juliet. For those of you who don't know, Romeo and Juliet is about a pair of teenage lovers from opposing gangs in the crime-ridden city of Verona, Italy. Their brief romance causes a lot of trouble and ends badly. I think some of you can relate. Vocabulary. At the behest of, at the behest of, at the behest of the president, we have rescheduled the meeting. Down in the dumps, down in the dumps. After losing the game, I felt down in the dumps. Not give someone the time of day. Not give someone the time of day. Unless you are over 6 feet tall, she won't give you the time of day. Flirt. Flirt. It's not a good idea to flirt with your coworkers. Pine. Pine. He pined for the woman he loved. Put up one's dukes. Put up one's dukes. You want to fight? Put up your dukes. Hot-headed. Hot-headed. He is not a good candidate for president because he is too hot-headed and irritable. On the lam. On the lam. After robbing the bank, Sam was on the lam. The story. A long time ago, the city of Verona was divided between two rival factions, the Montagues and the Capulets. They had fought each other for many years until an uneasy truce was signed at the behest of the Prince of Verona. With the truce in place, the leader of the Capulets, Signore Capulet, decided to host a debutante ball in honor of his daughter, Juliet. His goal was to marry her to the rich and influential Count Paris. However, these plans were derailed by a young man from the house of Montague. On a sunny day in spring, a young man named Romeo met with his friends in the town square. "Good morning, cousin," said Benvolio, Romeo's best friend. "Is it still morning?" replied Romeo. "Time passes slowly when you're depressed," he added. Benvolio inquired, "What's got you so down in the dumps? Is it a girl?" Romeo nodded and told him about a girl named Rosaline, whom he admired. "She won't give me the time of day," lamented Romeo. "If only I could talk to her face to face, maybe I could change her mind about me." Benvolio had an idea. He told Romeo about the debutante ball at the Capulet mansion. "Rosaline is sure to be there," he said. Although they were both from the house of Montague, they decided to take the risk and crash the Capulets' party. Later, at the mansion of the Capulets, a pretty young girl named Juliet was preparing for the party. Her mother, Donna Capulet, entered her dressing room. "Juliet, dear, what do you think of marriage?" she asked. "I'm not interested," was Juliet's reply. Donna Capulet was a bit taken aback by this. "I was already a mother by your age," she said. "Besides, Count Paris is both handsome and rich. How could you say no to that?" Juliet shrugged her shoulders and decided to at least try to enjoy the party. Meanwhile, Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio were mingling with the other guests at the party. They were looking for Rosaline, but in the end, it was another girl that caught Romeo's eye. When Juliet walked into the room, Romeo's heart skipped a beat. Romeo asked the nearest servant, "Who is that?" The servant told him it was Juliet, the daughter of Signore Capulet. "She's smoking hot," said Romeo. Just then, Juliet's cousin Tybalt approached. "Hey, Montague, what are you doing here?" Tybalt then challenged Romeo to a fight. If it weren't for the intervention of Signore Capulet, there would have been bloodshed that night. "Cool it," he said. "Leave him alone. I don't want to upset the truce." Romeo and Tybalt stared daggers at each other for a minute. "Come on, boys," said Romeo to his pals. "Let's go." But before Romeo could leave the party, he had to meet the beautiful Juliet. He approached her, took her hand, and gave it a gentle kiss. "Hey," he said. "Hey yourself," was her reply. The two started flirting immediately. Things were getting steamy until Juliet's nurse interrupted them. "Your mother wants to talk to you," the nurse said coldly. The two lovers parted ways, but Romeo was determined to see her again. Later that night, Romeo found his way into the garden outside of Juliet's bedroom window. He was desperate to get a glimpse of her beauty, but her window was on the second floor, so it was hard to see. Finally, Juliet stepped onto her balcony to get a breath of fresh air. "What a hottie!" exclaimed Romeo. Juliet noticed Romeo down below and gasped, "Ay me!" "Speak some more, bright angel," said Romeo. The two started flirting again. Their passion grew and grew. "Let's get married," suggested Romeo. They then came up with a plan. With the help of Juliet's nurse, they arranged for Friar Lawrence to marry them the next day. "Good night," said Juliet. "I'll miss you," replied Romeo. The following morning, Romeo arrived at Friar Lawrence's chapel. Friar Lawrence knew that the young Juliet was planning to get married that morning, but he did not know to whom. When he heard that Romeo was the groom, he exclaimed, "Holy St. Francis! Weren't you just pining over Rosaline a couple of days ago?" Romeo waved his hand dismissively and said, "I've already forgotten about her." Soon, Juliet arrived, and Friar Lawrence performed the wedding ceremony. The happy couple kissed and embraced each other as man and wife. Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, had not forgotten about his confrontation with Romeo. He was determined to punish Romeo for trespassing on Capulet territory. He found Romeo hanging out with his friends in the town square later that afternoon. "Romeo, you villain," he growled. "Put up your dukes." Romeo refused to fight because he now saw Tybalt as his relative. "I'm a lover, not a fighter," explained Romeo. Mercutio, Romeo's hot-headed friend, was incensed by Romeo's refusal to fight. "What dishonorable, vile submission!" shouted Mercutio. "If you won't fight this rat-catcher, then I will." He drew his sword and lunged at Tybalt. The two young men fought fiercely. Romeo tried to break up the fight, but in the process, Mercutio was killed. As Romeo held his dying friend's hand, he glared at Tybalt with wild eyes. "Either you or I will die today," he yelled. Romeo attacked Tybalt ferociously. Tybalt did not prevail and died in the street. Benvolio grabbed Romeo by the arm and pulled him away. "Let's go before the cops get here," he implored. Romeo was now on the lam. When Juliet learned what had happened in the town square, she was in a total despair. To make matters worse, her father decided to marry her to Count Paris the next day. "Whatever shall I do?" she lamented. Just then, she heard a knock at the door. It was Friar Lawrence. He had met with Romeo not long after the incident, and the two of them had come up with a plan. "Romeo will meet you here tomorrow night. The two of you can run away together," he said. But Juliet started crying. She explained her predicament. "How can I run away when I'm supposed to be married tomorrow?" Friar Lawrence thought for a moment and then snapped his fingers. "I've got an idea," he said. The friar handed Juliet a sleeping potion. "Take this tonight. Everyone will think you are dead. Then you and Romeo will be free to live together." Juliet eagerly agreed to the new plan. "Love, give me strength," she declared as she grabbed the bottle. Juliet did as the friar suggested and drank the sleeping potion. Her parents were deeply saddened by Juliet's apparent death. They quickly arranged for a wake at the family tomb. Reverently, they carried her body into the crypt. Meanwhile, Romeo was hiding in the city of Mantua. Friar Lawrence had sent a message to inform him of the new plan to fake Juliet's death. Unfortunately, the message never arrived, and when Romeo heard about Juliet's funeral, his heart sank. "How can I live without her?" he cried. He decided that if he couldn't be with her in life, then he would be with her in death. After buying a bottle of poison, he went straight to the Capulet family crypt to see his wife one last time. He gave her lips a final kiss and said, "Here's to my love." He then gulped down the poison and died in seconds. Just as Romeo's potion was taking effect, Juliet's was wearing off. By the time she awoke, Romeo was already dead. She looked around, confused. Then she realized what had happened. She drew Romeo's knife from its sheath. "Oh, happy dagger," she cried, "rest in my heart." Juliet stabbed herself in the chest and died, her body collapsing on top of Romeo's. After this horrific tragedy, the Capulets and Montagues decided to bury the hatchet once and for all. A new truce was signed, and the two factions decided to erect a monument in honor of Romeo and Juliet. The Prince of Verona gave a speech at the monument. He said, "Never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo." Questions. Number 1. How did Juliet feel about marrying Count Paris? A. She was excited. B. She was dreading it. C. She was willing but anxious. D. She didn't care. The answer is D. She didn't care about getting married at all. Question 2. Why did Romeo go to the debutante ball? A. To meet Juliet. B. To meet Rosaline. C. To meet Benvolio. D. To kill Tybalt. The answer is B. To meet Rosaline. Question 3. Why was Romeo on the lam? A. He robbed someone. B. He was framed. C. He murdered Tybalt. D. He was wanted for tax evasion. The answer is C. He murdered Tybalt. Question 4. What effect did the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet have on the community? A. It brought people closer together. B. It divided them even more. C. It started a war between the Capulets and Montagues. D. It had no effect. The answer is A. It brought people closer together.